for me. Blood in my dog and I can't see. I'm trying to be what I'm destined to be. And niggas trying to take my life away. I put a hole in a nigga for fucking with me.
What's up, YouTube? The day has finally come to start this thing. If you haven't watched the previous videos, I made a video of when I picked up this R33, showing you guys kind of an overall condition of the vehicle and what was wrong with it and why I bought it. And then the last video was me reassembling the motor after fixing all the known issues that I came across. And now's the time to finally start it, see if it runs, and hopefully drive it and see if there's any other issues with this car, because I've never tried to start it or heard it run or anything. So this is a R33 Skyline GTST. It was bone stock when I got it, only 40,000 miles, so super clean. It had engine problems. Just a brief explanation. I took the head off, all the valves were bent, had the machine shop put all new SuperTech valves in the head, and then I picked up a Freddy manifold, and I did a front mount intercooler and power steering cooler and all new piping for that. It came with an aftermarket radiator because it was overheating before I bought it. And other than that, it's completely stock still. So I don't know if the clutch is any good. I don't know if the transmission's any good. I don't know if it has rod knock. I haven't even started this thing. I got the power steering I still need to top off, but I need to start the car so I can turn it back and forth to get all the new fluid through the cooler. And then I am gonna fill this up with water so that while it's idling, when the thermostat opens, it can drink. All right, I've got plenty of water in there, so hopefully when it warms up, the thermostat will open and the engine can drink some more water. I also need to get a battery. These R33s were nice. They came factory with the rear mount battery set up, but I need to get a battery that fits in there. The car didn't come with a battery at all. So right now I'm just running jumper cables. Let's see if it starts. The battery's kind of weak. All right, after doing a little investigating and calling Oscar like I always do, we FaceTimed and I showed him what I had going on and checked a few things. And I'm pretty sure I looked at my pictures from when I took the factory manifold off and where all the lines were hooked up. And I could have swore it went from the filter, the fuel line went to this regulator, but he thinks it's backwards. So I'm gonna swap those and hopefully it fires up. All right, so all I did was swap these two hoses here, so that effectively reversed them up here. Man, let's see. Oh, she wants to start. Well, it's trying to start, which is good news, but it won't stay running. It's like hitting a couple cylinders and then it's just dying off. I think I'm gonna check the fuel pump now. I do have a bunch of spare 240, like Walbro fuel pumps for 240s, so I'm assuming they'll just drop right into this hanger. I'm gonna pull that, and just since I'm pulling it, I'm just gonna swap it out with one of my backup pumps, and hopefully that'll make it a little stronger. I swapped the fuel pump out. I should have videotaped it, but I was getting excited to hear this thing run, so, and a little frustrated. So I took the fuel hanger out. It is just the same hanger as like an S14, and I had a couple extra fuel pumps laying around, so I swapped it out. Hopefully it runs. Well, it started. Blowoff valve staying open. All right, so it is running and it is idling, but it's blowing black smoke. And I came up here and looked around, and the blow-off valve came with 2 springs, the one that's in it and another one. And at idle, the blow-off valve is just sitting there opening. So that tells me that that's not strong enough. So I'm gonna take the blow-off valve off now and throw the extra spring in there so it's extra tight. And then hopefully it'll stop running rich and be good. I took it off, took this small spring out, and I put the stiffer one in. You better run good now. Hey. I don't know if I mentioned this, but the reason why it would kind of start and not stay running is because I took the stock fuel pump out and it had an aftermarket pump in, but the hoses were pretty crappy and they were like split. So I had an Aeromotive fuel pump already on my shelf, an extra one. So I swapped that in and replaced the lines in the tank. This thing purrs. Gonna top this off. And when it warms up, I need to top off the water. I'm a little worried about it. A little bit of bad news. So as it was idling, I got in the car. I was looking at all the gauges and stuff. And I'm a little worried about the oil pressure. I put in the billet gears in the oil pump, and they have the new wave design, like the N1 pump. So in theory, they should be higher pressure. But it was reading really low on the gauge. It was reading, but it wasn't reading 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 bar like it should be. I don't know if it's just a crappy sensor or a crappy gauge, but I do know that I had to pull the pan and pull the pickup tube to do the oil pump gear swap. And I'm a little worried that something got caulked or not sealed, or the rubber O-ring on the pickup tube is a little out of whack, causing it to have low oil pressure. So I shut it down. I'm just gonna pull the pan again just to make sure that that's not the problem. I did pull the oil cap while it was running, and I could see the oil splashing up in the head. So I know it's getting oil and it's running. And the oil pressure gauge was showing oil pressure. It just wasn't where I want it to be. So I'm just gonna be a little cautious and spend the extra time to pull the pan again. But this time I'm gonna actually drop the subframe out. So I'm gonna support the engine from the top and pull the whole subframe out. So when I drop the pan, it's a lot easier to access that pickup tube and make sure that gasket and O-ring and all of that is perfect. And then I'll reseal it all and put it back together. And then hopefully the gauge will go up. More work. Subframe is off. See the power steering line's hanging down. Oil pan is fully exposed. So now I got to take the dog ear brackets off from the transmission to the block, and then buzz all the oil pan bolts off and drop it down. And then I can check the pickup tube, make sure it's got a good seal. Well, I mean, I'm gonna take it off to check the seal. So I'm gonna take the pickup tube off, reseal it, and then put it all back together. Getting back on the car after a few days. Took a break because I resealed the oil pickup and the oil pan and put all that back together, and had to, give it time for the RTV to set up before I could start it again. But let me show it to you. It's pretty much all put together now. Shout out to my buddy Kenny Level. He had a spare RB25 laying around and gave me the cover off of it. So now I can get new hardware and mount the igniter to the cover, and it'll be nice and clean. I also this kind of covers up the nice piping work and stuff, but it does kind of give the engine a good clean look. So I kind of dig it. I couldn't just leave the air box covered because then it would be sucking hot air. So I kind of had to run this piece to get the cool air to the intake. But I don't think it looks bad. Definitely gives you all the benefits of having a forward-facing manifold and a front mount intercooler while still getting fresh air to the intake and having a clean intake setup that's mounted real nice. I also took the time, this thing didn't have a battery when I got it. And if you've ever bought a JDM car, you know they come with small batteries with small terminals and everything. So I went and got a battery that would fit back here. I swapped the terminals and extended the bracket so it would fit this battery. And it's all nice and clean. Had it on the tender overnight. All right. So I need to do some heat cycles and do some test driving so I can get the power steering fluid to burp all the air out of the cooler and get that topped off. And then I also need to do a couple heat cycles to get the radiator topped off. But overall, I'm excited. It runs good, it sounds good. Got good oil pressure. No leaks, no smoke. We're in business. Time to drive this thing. First drive. Running good. What do you think, bud?
I like it.
You want to take some video? Well, the test drive went great. The car's running good, sounds good. I'm doing one last coolant flush just because there was so much crud in the engine and all the lines and corrosion from sitting for a long time and overheating when it had the issues in Japan. I wanted to run it for a while and then flush it out. I'll probably top off the water, drive it around for a few days, and then I'll probably flush the water out even again just to get all that crap out of there. And I also pulled the oil out again. I ran some thin oil with some ATF, which acts as a detergent to kind of clean up all the oiling ports and passageways and stuff in the motor. And then me and Kai took it for a test drive and ripped on it just a little bit. And then I swapped that oil out for some fresh oil. And this will be the oil that stays in it for, you know, a few months. All good. Is in good shape. Now we can start tackling all the little stuff. The gas gauge doesn't work because I pulled the sender out and the sender was bad. So I am on the hunt for an R33 factory fuel gauge sending unit that goes in the tank. I don't know if it's the same as the S14. I'll have to do some research and see. The hanger that holds the fuel pump, I swapped that fuel pump out for an Aeromotive one that I had on the shelf, and the whole hanger assembly seems to be identical to an S14, so the sender might be also. I gotta do some research and look at some pictures. Next video will probably be a full suspension refresh and chopping quarters. That means body kit time. And then this thing will be looking pretty sharp. So stay tuned for that.